Hello, good evening everyone. I'm Julian Thompson, Director of Enterprise here at the RSA. Welcome to the event tonight. Some of you just joining us now. Welcome also to everyone who's joining us online. We're live streaming the event tonight, so welcome to all of you and everyone who's joining us also via Twitter. Our hashtag tonight is #RSAMeng, M-E-N-G. Before we begin, though, just a quick reminder to turn your phones to silent, please, so we can be mindful and attentive to everything that Meng is going to teach us about tonight. So it's my great pleasure to introduce tonight's guest speaker. Chade-Meng Tan is a Google pioneer, an award-winning engineer, a New York Times best-selling author and philanthropist. His personal goal is to achieve world peace. So this is someone to listen to, I think. He was one of Google's earliest engineers, and among many other things, he helped build Google's first mobile search service. After a successful 8-year stint in engineering and 2 years as head of personal growth, he now serves with Google's people development team. And his current job description, as I say, it's actually bigger than in creating world peace. It's enlighten minds, open hearts, and create world peace. I'd love to sit in on his appraisal. So anyway, Meng joins us this evening to share some insights from the program he developed for Google, which distills emotional intelligence into a set of practical tools and skills that can be used by anyone who wants to work more productively, more collaboratively, and more joyfully. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Chade-Meng Tan.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Well, good evening, my friends. First, I apologize that I just flew in from San Francisco, so I'm like sleepy. So I'm not as funny as I should be. And because I lost my sense of humor, I have to rely entirely on my good looks. So I apologize. Fortunately, yeah. So my name is Meng, and let me see. Okay, I guess I need to advance. Oh, you see, in humor, timing is everything. My name is Meng. I'm the jolly good fellow of Google. I have the coolest job title in corporate America. If we have time during Q&A, you can ask me about how I got this job title. I also have the coolest job description in corporate America, which is to enlighten minds, open hearts, and create world peace. The other thing I'm known for in Google is I'm known for being very old. So I joined Google in 2000. I'm so old, I joined Google in the last millennium. Take that, kids. I'm also famous for being the guy who has been on the front page of the New York Times. And the reason I got on the New York Times is because of a Google tradition. The tradition is that anybody who's famous who comes to Google must have a picture taken with me, and they go on the wall of Maine. Right? So this is a New York Times story about the wall. Oh, by the way, I have to tell a story. So this came out just before I met this guy called Barack Obama, who was back then running for president. And when I met him, he was like, "You're the guy on the New York Times, aren't you?" It's like, how do you know you're famous, right? And Barack Obama knows you from the New York Times. So this picture, by the way, I tell all my friends that I'm the only person who has been on the front page of the New York Times 4 times in one day. So that sex scandal thing, that's not me. So sorry to disappoint. So some people on the wall, people like this. You see, for example, President Clinton and her husband Bill. I mean, future President Clinton. Future President Clinton. I also the other thing I did was I spoke at the UN with a supermodel. I know some of you might have spoken at the UN before, but how many of you spoke at the UN with a supermodel? I spoke at TED, and my latest adventure or misadventure was writing a book, was actually creating a curriculum for emotional intelligence as an engineer. And writing what became an international bestseller. And so this is a cover from the US hardcover edition. The coolest thing about this book is the back cover, because the back cover contains an endorsement from the Dalai Lama and Jimmy Carter. You see, my friends, this is how you know it's a good book. Because what are the chances that the Dalai Lama and Jimmy Carter are both wrong at the same time? Thank you. So what is Search Inside Yourself? Search Inside Yourself is a curriculum on emotional intelligence. And you may ask, what is emotional intelligence? So the best answer to answer the question is with a parable. It's a parable of a man on a horse. So the man was just on a horse and he was just going along, and there's a guy on the street asking the guy on the horse, say, "Hey, rider, where are you going?" And the guy on the horse says, "I don't know. Why are you asking me? You should be asking the horse." Duh. Which sounds ridiculous. However, it is something we engage in every day. Because the horse here represents our emotional life, or our emotional mind, and the rider represents our thinking mind, our thinking self. Right? And we have this illusion that the horse controls the rider, that emotions control us. We have no control over our emotional life. Sometimes it gets worse. Sometimes it feels like this. Large parts of my life. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling hateful, you're feeling jealous, so on and so forth, right? It feels like this. So my friends, that's good news. The good news is that you can go from this to this. You can go from, with enough training, go from skilllessness with the horse to skillfulness with the horse. You can train, in other words, you can train emotional intelligence. Learn to at least influence where the horse goes, right? So that's the good news. What's the bad news? There is no bad news. Like with me, there's only good news and better news. Which is one reason people love me, in addition to my good looks, of course. The better news is that you can go from this to this. You can go from skilllessness to skillfulness and eventually mastery over your emotional lives. So what is emotional intelligence? The standard definition is this, the ability to monitor one's own and others' emotions, feelings and emotions, to discriminate among them, and most importantly, to use this information to guide one's thinking and actions. So that's a standard definition. There is another definition of EI, which I think is shorter and more powerful, in my opinion, which is that emotional intelligence is a collection of emotional skills. And that is important. Why? Because all skills are trainable. Therefore, if EI is just a collection of skills, emotional skills, then EI must be trainable. That's the good news. Again, there's no bad news. There's only better news. The good news is it's trainable. The better news is that it turns out from our experience that you can train emotional intelligence to a meaningful degree, to a degree that's life-changing for some people, in as little as 7 weeks. 20 hours of training. So how do you do that? It turns out that EI cannot be learned. It can only be trained. And why? Why can it be trained? The reason it can be trained is because of a feature of the brain called neuroplasticity. Plasticity. Which is that what we think, what we do, and what we pay attention to changes the function and structure of the brain. Let me see how much time I have. I have a story to tell. The interesting story behind this is that the first empirical evidence that this is true came from here, London. Right. So the story I was told was that there were a couple of neuroscientists, they were on an airplane, and they wanted to study neuroplasticity. And so they were talking loudly to themselves on the airplane. It's like, where can we find a population of people who does a specific thing, and the specific thing is something that we know what's the neurocorrelate, that where it happens in the brain, right? And we can study it. And as you're talking, somebody from the next seat, total stranger, says, London cabbies. Right? Because in order to get a driving license, a license to drive a cab, you need to take the test, right? To navigate all the streets in London in the head. And we know where that part of the brain responsible for that is, the hippocampus. So the hippocampi of London cabbies were studied. And it turns out that they have bigger and more active hippocampus than normal people, and the longer they've been driving a cab, the more true that is. And that was the first evidence of neuroplasticity in adults. So the good news is that the brain is highly trainable, even for adults, even for engineers. So how do you do this? How do you train emotional intelligence? You can do this in 3 easy steps. And step 1 is attention training. And so you might ask, what has attention got to do with emotional intelligence? Right? And the answer is this. When I say attention, I'm talking about something fairly specific, which is the attentional ability to bring the mind to a state that's calm and clear mind, and to do that on demand. In other words, to calm the mind on demand. Bring the mind to this state, calm and clear. Why is this important? The first reason it's important is something that is described by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl says that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies your freedom and power to choose your response. And if you have the ability to calm the mind on demand, what happens? That space becomes reliably accessible. The space between stimulus and response. Therefore, what do you get? You get choice, power, freedom. Freedom, my friends, from this one simple skill. So that's good. It gets better. If you are a leader, this skill turns out to be a mark of leadership. So for example, if you are in a meeting room of peers, right? And let's say there's a crisis, and everybody is panicking. And you alone, because of this skill, you alone can calm the mind as you're panicking, calm the mind and think clearly. If you can do that, what happens? People look at you and say, Celia, she's always calm in crisis. And they feel she's a leader, right? And if in a company, next year's promotion cycle, guess who gets considered? You get considered if you have this skill. So this is an important leadership skill. And it gets better. This skill is also the foundation of all higher cognitive and emotional skills. So you train this, it prepares you for emotional intelligence. So how to do that? The way to do that is with a simple technique called mindfulness. Which is defined very simply as this, as paying attention, but not just paying attention. Paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and most importantly, non-judgmentally. Shall we give it a try? 10 seconds, just 10 seconds, not 10 minutes, 10 seconds, very easy. For 10 seconds, bring attention to the process of breathing, whatever that means to you. And if you need something more specific, attend to the sensation and nose as you breathe. And every time attention wanders away, bring it back. That's all. Sounds easy? Shall we do that for 10 seconds? Okay, 10 seconds beginning now. Okay, that was 10 seconds. How was it? Not too bad. Right? So this is the point in my talk where Julian asked for his money back. If I were speaking to a bunch of engineers in Google, they'll be asking what we call the WTF question. And for those who doesn't know what it stands for, WTF stands for what is happening. And the WTF question is wait a minute. I attend to my breath, wanders away, I bring it back. How could this possibly do me any good? Right? Doesn't make any sense, right? So to answer this question, we use an analogy. And an analogy is training, physical fitness. So let's pretend that nobody in this room knows anything about physical fitness. And I just did one bicep curl. And everybody just did one bicep curl. And you should be asking the same question, the WTF question, which is, how can this possibly do me any good? I take a heavy object, I bring it down. Makes no sense, right? However, if you know about physical fitness, you know the answer, which is that every time you do one of this, you strengthen the muscles here a little bit more. And if you do a lot of this, what happens? You develop a quality called strength. And once you develop this quality, the first thing that happens is that you're able to do things that you never imagined doing before. For example, you can carry heavy objects. Right? For example, you can throw out the boyfriend. The boyfriend says, take out the trash. Sure. So, but besides doing that, besides throwing out a boyfriend, something else happens. It's that if you do this a lot, you also acquire health and fitness. And if you do that, you have more energy at work. You have fewer sick days. You can fly in from San Francisco and London and speak in 3 hours. With 3 hours of sleep in 24 hours, right? You can do that because you're physically fit. And if you do that, what happens? You become more successful. Right? Simply having more energy and having fewer sick days, that alone makes you more successful. And you feel good about yourself. You feel great all the time. And you like yourself in the mirror. Right? And you look confident. So that stupid-looking action, taking a heavy object, up and down, up and down, up and down, this has implications for success, profits, happiness, well-being, feeling great all the time. If you never heard of exercise, that claim I just made should be mind-blowing. And I'm making the same claim about what you just did. Because every time your attention wanders away, you bring it back. It's like strengthening, it's like doing one bicep curl for the mind. Like if you do, every time you bring attention back, it's like strengthening the neurological mechanisms that controls your attention. Specifically the prefrontal cortex. And if you do that a lot, then you gain mastery over attention. And that mastery allows you, among other things, the skill to calm the mind on demand. So that's the first thing. Life-changing already, right? But wait, there's more. This is only step one. There's better news. The second step is self-knowledge that leads to self-mastery. So what does that mean? Remember I said, bring your mind to a state that's calm and clear on demand, right? I talked about calmness. I haven't talked about clarity. So what does clarity mean? Clarity here, specifically, if you have the attentional mastery, you begin to perceive emotions differently. You begin to create a high-resolution perception into the process of emotion. High resolution. Again, what does that mean? So to illustrate, here is a picture, a low-resolution picture. If we increase the resolution, you realize, it's a picture of some old guy trying to hide the recipe of chicken. So what resolution does for you is it gives you useful information. And it's the same with perception of the emotional process. Specifically, we are increasing it on 2 dimensions. The first is a spatial dimension, which means the ability to perceive small changes in the process of emotion. The second is a temporal dimension, which means to perceive it in thin slices of time, or for engineers among you, in real time. Right? Combined, you get insights into an emotional life that leads to profound changes. So let me give you one example of a profound change that an insight alone can lead to. So the first thing, one way that this happens is going from existential, or seeing our emotional experience as going from existential to experiential. So again, what does that mean? When we experience emotion, we think of it in existential terms. For example, I say I am happy, I am sad, I am angry, right? I am that emotion. That emotion is me. There is no separation. And as your perception into the emotional process sharpens over time, you may introduce a subtle shift in the way you see it. You go from I am angry to I am experiencing anger, which seems like a small shift, right? However, it has profound implications, because this tiny shift introduces the possibility of something called the big sky mind, which is that the mind is like the sky and emotions are like clouds in the sky. Fundamentally, the clouds are not the sky. And therefore, in the same way, my emotions are not me. My emotions are not me, my thoughts are not me. I am not my emotions, I am not my thoughts. And if you're somebody who's stuck in a cycle of, for example, stuck in a cycle of depression, that one insight, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my thoughts, that one insight is the first break out of the cycle of depression. Very powerful insight, life-changing. But wait, there's more. Let me see the time for more. Yes, I do. Which is that as your perception sharpens even